Well, it's been 133 episodes since we last covered Hellboy, so I guess we're due for a bit of a refresher.
Hellboy originated when comic artist Mike Mignola created a random doodle at a comic convention. Mignola filed the character away until he went to Dark Horse Comics, who were in the midst of launching a creator-owned comic line called Legends. Hellboy would get a debut appearance in another comic under the Legends imprint called Next Men before getting a miniseries in the spring of 1994.
So here's where things start to get a little wonky. See, the first Hellboy miniseries was collected as Hellboy Volume 1, Seed of Destruction. What followed was a series of one-shot issues and appearances in anthology comics like Dark Horse Presents. Then came a second Hellboy miniseries that was collected as Hellboy Volume 2, Wake the Devil. Today, we're looking at the collected third volume of Hellboy stories, and this contains a lot of those anthology appearances and one-shots that came out before the second miniseries that was collected as Volume 2. Everybody got that? Anyway, the first story in this collection actually appeared in the distribution catalog for the Capital City Distribution Company that, well, sold comics to comic shops to sell to readers. And it is actually one of the quintessential Hellboy stories, and it was borrowed from an old Irish folktale about a man named Taig O'Kane. This is Hellboy, the Corpse.
In 1959, Hellboy was summoned to Ireland to deal with a situation involving a couple with a newborn baby. The infant appeared normal, but the mother was sure something was wrong. Hellboy pulled out an iron horseshoe and tapped the baby on the head. A scream rang out and the truth was revealed as the child transformed into a demonic imp. The imp gave Hellboy directions to a crossroads where criminals were hung by the gallows before running off. Hellboy went to the location where three other imps made a deal. Take the corpse of a recently executed friend to one of 4 possible burial sites and bury him before sunrise. Upon completion, the child will be returned unharmed, no questions asked. Hellboy accepted the offer and grabbed the corpse, who immediately began complaining. The two soon reached the first possible location, an abandoned church. They made their way inside, only to immediately be rejected by a group saying that there was no room inside. The scenario would repeat itself over the next 2 locations, which did nothing to stop the whining from the corpse. As this was happening, the imp from earlier went to the Demon King wanting vengeance by preventing Hellboy from completing his task. However, the king vowed to keep his word and honor the deal. This left the imp to take matters into his own hands and visit a lake entity named Jenny Greenteeth with a key that unlocked a giant hog demon named Grom. Grom attacked Hellboy shortly before reaching the final burial site. While Hellboy dealt with Grom, who ate the imp, Jenny Greenteeth took the corpse's arm, preventing a true burial. Hellboy used a Catholic charm to take down Grom and dove into the lake to get the arm back. Upon emergence from the lake, Hellboy finds a pre-dug grave alongside one of the imps from earlier, who explains that their race is dying out and the baby was taken to try to start a new generation. Hellboy doesn't care as he completes the burial on time and demands the child be returned. The demons keep their word and Hellboy returns with the baby, though not before double-checking to make sure the demons weren't trying to trick him again.
When the time came to collect the corpse into a single-issue story, it actually turned out to be a few pages too short. So Mignola had to scribble together a backup story to fill things out. This is The Iron Shoes.
2 experts in folklore and demonology discuss the story of Ol Iron Shoes, a border goblin who dwells in abandoned towers and preys on unsuspecting travelers. In 1961, one such traveler was Hellboy, who had come looking for something. Iron Shoes tried to get the drop on Hellboy, only to wind up getting ensnared in a rope. Hellboy took the goblin down to a nearby church where a priest banished the entity to hell, leaving the shoes behind.
Okay, so you remember that wonkiness I mentioned earlier? Well, we're about to hit it here, as Hellboy Wake the Devil featured the infamous being of Slavic folklore known as the Baba Yaga as one of the principal antagonists. Now, the Baba Yaga in that story alluded to a past incident with Hellboy, and, well, we are now covering that in Volume 3 in a story simply titled The Baba Yaga.
Bereznik, Russia, March 1964. Hellboy is investigating the disappearances of several children. The nearby villagers immediately blame the Baba Yaga and warn Hellboy to just avoid the situation. He chooses to ignore them and waits in a graveyard for the Baba Yaga to appear to count the fingers of recently dead sinners. Hellboy confronts the Baba Yaga and the two struggle until Hellboy gets out his gun, the Samaritan, and shoots his opponent through the eye. The Baba Yaga runs off, leaving many of the forest creatures to wonder if she is dead. A bear appears to inform them that as long as Russia endures, so will the Baba Yaga. Over the next year, all children born in Bereznik are blind in one eye.
Our next story is from the Hellboy Christmas special and is simply titled A Christmas Underground.
Christmas Eve, 1989. Hellboy pays a visit to a wealthy woman on her deathbed. The woman has been severely depressed since 1984 when her middle child Annie mysteriously vanished. The old woman has one request for Hellboy, whom she mistakes as Father Christmas. Annie visits every Christmas, and Hellboy needs to deliver a box to Annie as the old woman passes. When the old woman dies, a priest explains that Annie was last seen wandering through a nearby cemetery with graves that date back to before Christian times. Hellboy goes into the cemetery where he finds an ancient tombstone out of place. Moving it reveals a staircase which Hellboy soon descends. Soon he finds Annie, who explains that she was led by a silver-haired mouse. The mouse soon introduced her to someone who called himself the second son of a king and took Annie to be his bride. Now she and the prince throw lavish parties for all who wish to attend. Hellboy presents Annie with the box from her mother. The box contains a cross attached to a rosary, which causes all the demons at the party to burn. The prince soon emerges, revealing himself to also be a demon, and begin fighting with Hellboy until the bells of a nearby church chime at midnight. This causes the demon to turn to dust. Also, the estate catches on fire and burns to the ground.
It's at this point we finally reach the titular story of this volume, The Chained Coffin, and it features a brief appearance from Hellboy's fellow BPRD agent, Abe Sapien. Now, the BPRD is the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense, and they discovered Abe in a tank that was labeled Ichthyosapien and dated April 14th, 1865. Ichthyosapien means, well, fishman, and April 14th was the day Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, so, well, that's where Abe gets his name. It also delves into a possible backstory for Hellboy as he returns to the island that he was first discovered on by the BPRD.
It's December 23rd, 1994, 50 years since Hellboy's discovery, and Abe Sapien sits down to read a letter from his fellow agent and friend. Hellboy felt compelled to return to the island he was first discovered on ever since a medium informed him that the circumstances of arrival may have had some intent behind them. After an initial inspection of the ground turned up nothing, Hellboy sat down for a brief nap. He began to dream about a priest and a nun standing guard over a coffin wrapped in chains. Suddenly, a large demon appeared and demanded that the two turn the coffin's occupant, a woman, over to him. When the two refused, they were incinerated. The demon then opened the coffin to ask the soul of the long-deceased woman why she did such a thing. The woman said that she loved the demon only for him to kill all of their children. The demon pointed out the children were nothing and that their real son would soon be called to the earth. The demon then looked directly at Hellboy, causing him to wake up. The dream left Hellboy wondering if it were somehow true, like looking into the past. He wasn't entirely sure as he prepared to leave for West Virginia. He's always wanted to meet the Mothman.
Sadly, our next story doesn't involve the long-awaited Hellboy-Mothman team-up. Instead, it's a story about werewolves that Mike Mignola based on an old legend about St. Patrick cursing a pagan village's community to turn into wolves every 7 years. It also features the debut appearance of another prominent Hellboy supporting character in Kate Corrigan. Kate Corrigan is an NYU college professor who specializes in ancient folklore. And she eventually winds up acting as kind of a liaison between the higher-ups of the BPRD and their enhanced agents like Hellboy and Abe. This is The Wolves of St. August.
In the small Balkan village of Griar, a priest named Father Kelly has arrived to restore the local church. However, he's not being welcomed with open arms as only one villager has attempted to help. The villager explains the church was the private chapel for the aristocratic Grenier family, who, along with their servants, were burned alive inside. The villager shows Father Kelly the tomb, revealing the skeleton of a wolf in human garb. Before he can do anything, he's attacked by a large wolf. 9 days later, Hellboy and Kate Corrigan arrive to find the whole village brutally slaughtered. There isn't one living being in the entire town. The two try to locate Father Kelly, a former BPRD consultant and friend of Hellboy, so the two head to the church. On the outside of the structure, Kate notices a statue of St. August, which sparks a memory. Kate explained that she heard the tale of a monk named Philippe of Brieux who visited the village of St. August. When he entered the church, he found the ruling family worshipping what he called the devil, though in all likelihood it was just a local fertility god. Philippe then cursed the family to change into bloodthirsty wolves every 7 years. The family tried to keep it a secret but were soon found out and killed inside the church. Kate theorizes that it could be that Griard is in reality St. August, as the village was named but the ruling family was never mentioned. The only problem is, if the whole family was killed, then who is killing the entire village? Before Kate could explain further, the ground beneath her gave way and she fell into a chamber where a young woman apologized and explained that she was forced to do what she did, as she turns into a wolf. Hellboy lures himself into the chamber, where Kate points out that some versions of the tale of St. August say that a son from the family escaped. Kate theorizes that it's possible that this son has survived through the centuries as more wolves begin to keep popping up. It's then the two are greeted by the ghost of Father Kelly, who pleads for help before being ripped apart by the villager from earlier. who is William Grenier, the lost son. William reveals that he destroyed the village out of spite and has been keeping the souls of the dead hostage. He then transforms and begins brawling with Hellboy as Kate and the souls of the Grenier family look on. Grenier throws Hellboy around until Hellboy grabs the stone head of the fertility god and smashes it into the wolf's eye. Hellboy then runs Grenier through with a crucifix staff and the monster dies. In a postscript, BPRD documents reveal that further investigations have ruled that all spirits have been released and that the village of Griar or St. August is now clean. But the village remains empty to this day.
Our final story tonight is the follow-up to Wake the Devil and concerns Liz Sherman, a BPRD agent who has the ability to psychically manifest and control fire. Now, in Wake the Devil, Liz came across the shell of a human being known as a homunculus. The homunculus had a hole in its chest that Liz put her finger in, and it wound up absorbing her fire abilities, which caused the homunculus to suddenly become animated. We now deal with the fallout of that situation in Almost Colossus.
Liz is in the hospital and it's not looking good. Physically, her wounds from the previous mission are minor, but she appears to just be wasting away, almost as if something has been ripped from her very being. If Hellboy and Kate can't track down the roving homunculus, any chance to save Liz will be for naught. Abe Sapien has faith, though, that Hellboy will pull through. Hellboy and Kate come across a group of villagers who talk of someone killing local livestock before running off into a mountain. No one wants to pursue as the area tends to get struck by lightning on a frequent basis. On the mountaintop, the homunculus prays to God for forgiveness, thinking he's killed Liz. His prayers are interrupted by a hooded figure carrying a familiar-looking medallion. The figure reveals himself to be an earlier homunculus created by the same man. The creator found his original homunculus to be an abomination and attempted to poison him, but the creature survived, bid his time, and killed the creator who had been taken in by the Inquisition after creating the younger homunculus. The two leave as the elder homunculus has prepared for the moment when the two brothers were reunited. The next morning, Hellboy and Kate begin inspecting the area around the mountain, where they happen across an abandoned monastery. One of the walls of the monastery has clearly been reconstructed out of metal. Before they can inspect further, Kate is pulled away by a rope while Hellboy is pulled underground. Hellboy discovers an army of imp-like creatures and tries to fight them off as he spies Kate being tied up in a noose and dragged away. She disappears just as Hellboy breaks free, but he happens across the corpses of the monks who are willing to aid Hellboy. As this is happening, Liz's condition worsens and she slips into a coma. Kate is taken to a room where the homunculus brothers are waiting. The elder homunculus explains his plan. He's constructed a giant new body, one that the souls of both brothers can inhabit. The younger homunculus is taken aback as he doesn't really want to bring harm to anyone, but the elder points out the world will never fully accept them. The younger homunculus isn't buying it though as he decks his brother and starts to free Kate as Hellboy comes crashing into the chamber. This allows the elder brother to make his way to the giant mold he created and merge with the new giant. As the monastery collapses, Hellboy leaps into action to take on the giant and jabs a tree into the giant's neck. The giant is unfazed, though, and grabs Hellboy to begin crushing him when the younger homunculus intercedes. Seeing the power attained, he now wants to merge. The giant gleefully swallows his younger brother after dropping Hellboy on the ground. Of course, this is a trick, and the young homunculus begins burning the giant from within via Liz Sherman's fire powers. Afterwards, all that is left of the giant is a pile of bones. However, the younger homunculus is found mostly unharmed. Hellboy grabs him and asks him to help save Liz. The trio rush back to the hospital, where the younger homunculus, whom Hellboy has given the name Roger, returns Liz's fire to her. As she revives, Roger collapses.
And that concludes our look at Hellboy Volume 3, The Chained Coffin, and others. How was it? Well, on the plus side, I really like the story draws a lot more on the horror aspects of Hellboy. I mean, the adventure stuff is there, and it's fun, and there's some dark humor throughout this, and that's always great. And all of the adventure stuff, like I said, is really fun, but it's nice to see that it does touch a little bit on horror. We got some good spooky stories like Christmas Underground, The Wolves of St. August, and The Chained Coffin. I think those really do highlight the horror aspects of Hellboy pretty well. Not to mention, what else can be said about Mike Mignola's artwork, except, of course, that it's spectacular and it's always good. And like I said, there's some good dark humor throughout all this, and you don't really need to know too much about Hellboy to enjoy these stories. You can kind of just jump right into it. If I do have a bit of a problem, and this is a little nitpicky, it's that aforementioned wonkiness. Like I said, it's kind of weird that we have stories that came out before Volume 2, but they're published after Volume 2 in the collection. I mean, even in the Hellboy Library collections, which basically combine 2 volumes into 1 volume, they're still in the second volume. They still come after the events of Wake the Devil, and even though they're before the events of Wake the Devil. Also, the titular story, The Chained Coffin, which is basically the flagship story of this book, is not that long. It's actually pretty short. I mean, Almost Colossus is really the longest story in here, and I mean, yeah, okay, technically the Chain Coffin is across 3 issues, but it was across 3 issues Dark Horse Presents, the anthology comic. Really, it's maybe slightly longer than an average comic book issue. And yet, like I said, it's the flagship title of the book. It kind of just feels a little weird. Again, though, that's pretty nitpicky. And I will also say this, I do find the ending of Almost Colossus to be a little rushed, but again, those are all really minor nitpicks. Like I said, you can pretty much jump right into this. You don't need to know a lot about Hellboy. You can pick up any volume and get into it. This gets an A, much like our previous one, The Conqueror Worm, did. And with that, let's see what I'll be doing next time on the Random Trade Review.
Remember, you can help support my channel at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcatproductions. There, you can request a trade to be put in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box. Also, remember, like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.
Oh, I forgot to add this bit earlier. So, in case you were wondering, Roger the Humunculus does eventually return to Hellboy and becomes another prominent supporting character, particularly in its sister series, BPRD. So, go check any of those out. Bye.